Good evening, everybody. Life has a strange ways of bringing people together. I first heard about Dr. Rajiv Karandikar way back in 1975-76. And 40 years later, I have the pleasure and privilege of introducing him to our program. Dr. Karandikar has made significant contributions to various areas of applied probability and mathematical statistics, and what follows now will go above all of our heads, but I still have to go through it, which is stochastic calculus, filtering theory, Markov processes, martingale problems, Monte Carlo techniques, queuing theory, game theory, theory of option pricing. He has authored 2 books with Professor G. Kalyanpur, one on filtering theory and one on option pricing. For his academic brilliance, he has been showered with numerous honors. He is a fellow of Indian National Science Academy and Indian Academy of Sciences, the Young Scientist Medal by the Indian National Science Academy in 1985, won the Bhatnagar Prize in 1999, C.R. Rao National Award in Statistics in 2000, and P.C. Maulanabi's Gold Medal given to him by Indian Science Congress in 2014, that's last year. He has been an editor of Shankar, ISI's Journal on Statistics, along with my brother, for several years in the mid-2000s, and was on the editorial boards of the Annals of Probability and Journal of Statistical Planning and Inference. He has been involved in numerous consulting projects over the years, including the development of proprietary block cipher algorithms for the Indian defense. The public, of course, knows him not as a famous mathematician, but as one who has applied his skills of probability and statistics to successfully predict poll results more often than others. He has worked on this regard with India Today, Doordarshan, TV Today, Aaj Tak during 1985 and 2005 period. From 2005 till last year, that is May 2014, he has been associated with CNN IBN, and we see him once again in the channels of the India Today group right now after Rajdeep has moved there. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a rousing welcome to Rajiv Karandikar.
Thank you, Sucheta and Devashish, for the invitation and for the nice introduction. The theme is so it's very difficult to stand at one place and speak. So what I say is that one doesn't need to have had a training in statistics or probability or anything like that. This is very natural. Now, a lot of what statistics probability is about is trying to understand what is it that goes on in the back of our mind when we say it is 7, and try to use that and model and do other things. But for today, actually, this suffices. So, indeed, there are 99 sevens and 1 8, and you can audit it after the session is over, because it's an important aspect, as we will be talking about it later. So now, assume that instead of 99:1, it was 95:5, okay? Now, of course, we can still do the same thing, and whatever number comes up, if only one experiment is done, we will make the same guess. Accuracy has come down. What if we wanted the same accuracy? Well, we can draw 3 times, okay, and go with the whichever comes at least twice. That's why 3. If we do 2 and 1 7 1 8, we are undecided. If we draw 3 and go with whichever comes 2 or 3 times, okay, then a simple mathematical calculation will tell us that we are going to get again 99% accuracy, as if it was 99:1. Okay. So what has happened is that the gap is not as extreme as 99:1, but by replicating it 3 times, we increase the gap to a desired level. Okay, and this is no statistics, no magic, no probability, nothing. People will say, "Oh, I don't believe in probability." I said, "No, it's just counting number of cases." Okay, so indeed, in the context of polls, so here is a table. You don't need to digest the whole table. I'll pick out 1 or 2 numbers to illustrate points. So, suppose there are 1 lakh voters in a constituency. Okay. Now, let's simplify assumptions. Only 2 candidates. Life is never this simple, but for the sake of discussion, 2 candidates A and B. Now, suppose we make all possible lists of voters. So, we mathematicians, once we start with suppose, we can suppose anything. So, we'll need tons of paper to make such lists, but we are not making it, we are only supposing. Okay. So, suppose we make all possible lists of voters of a certain size, okay, 101 to 1501, that is the number I am going to think about. So if we, let's say, so this is a mistype, so 1501. Suppose we make all possible lists of 1501 out of 1 lakh. Huge number, but now, suppose candidate A, the top header row is the percentage of support for A. So if A has 53% support, okay, so A has 53% support, B has 47% support. If we simply count in what percentage of lists will A show up as the winner, is 99.9. So this 95 to 5 became 99 to 1 if we replicated 3 times. So here if we replicate 1501 times, even something like 5347, that gap widens and it becomes 99.1, 99.9 and 0.1. This is again pure counting. There is no statistics, there is no probability, there is no modeling, nothing. Just sheer counting. So, and likewise here for 47 it drops down to 1 or 0.01. So this is the crux of what we call sample surveys and sampling, that if we do lists of size, so list of size 1501 means we do some experiment through which we pick out one list of 1501. It is as if we had written all possible lists and we have drawn one. Okay. Now, then you simply go and talk to these 1501 people. It is like opening the slip and seeing what is the number on it. Get their opinion. Whoever gets the majority in that, that's it. It's not that it will be perfect. It could have been that he could have taken the number 8 out here today. In which case, I would have had to spin a different story. I won't say that 8 is the dominant one, because I am always open to auditing. I would have said that this is what says that there is a limitation to this mechanism. It's generally true always, but it is not that you can bet anything you have. I can't bet my life on the outcome of such an experiment, like I can't bet my life on the outcome of what I say on television. That's what the data says. That is our best guess based on the data. It can be unbiased, but it is not the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. But of course, people who want to trash us would say it is lies, damn lies and statistics. Actually, the truth is somewhere in between. Media, of course, likes to hype it as truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So, ये कह रहे हैं कि आप हार रही हैं, आपको क्या कहना है? Off air, I try to tell them, I think, why do you do that? What else can they say? They can only say that, we have to wait, we cannot do that, but well, that's television. Part of statistics which is coming into the sample survey or polling is just this much. Just this magic of, if you make lists of a large enough size, any gap of course widens. Of course, if it is 50-50, no matter what you do, it will remain 50-50. But even 51-49, at the size 1501 has become 78.1. If you make it 4000, that will also become 99. So this is lesson number 1. Now the other lesson is, which is somewhat counterintuitive, that if instead of 1 lakh, if we had 5 lakh voters, okay, so for when we needed 1501 to get a certain accuracy, now do we need 7505 to get the same accuracy? And the surprising answer is no, we want only 1501 again. If you decide on accuracy level, 1 lakh, 5 lakh, 1 million, you need the same level of 2. So accuracy is defined by 2 parameters, the gap between the 2 candidates and what percentage correctness you want. These are the 2 parameters which decide accuracy. As long as your sample size is a small fraction of the total, which is always the case in the context we are talking, it is the sample size and not proportion which determines accuracy. I can write a simple I can show a simple mathematical program which will count all these lists and show you the ratio. Then you have to just believe that I have written a correct program or get it vetted by somebody. But that's a simple fact. That, and to illustrate that, I think I have that here. Let's go back to our 95 and 5. Okay. So here I am taking all possible lists, so there I have to put all 395, all 3 are coming out of the 95, or 2 from 95 and 1 from the remaining 5. Number of cases is 3, so that ratio gives me 99%. So the top line is the calculation which a class 11 student will do for my experiment about 95.5 and drawing 3 lists of size 3, which one will, okay. Now, Here, if you multiply this 95 by 1000 everywhere, and 5 also gets multiplied by 1000, denominator also every term gets multiplied by 1000, your ratio will be same. So whether it is out of 195 to 5 or out of 1,95,000 to 5,000, if we draw list of size 3, the accuracy level will again be. So this in a nutshell is a justification that or a proof that it is not the proportion of sampling fraction, that is sample size divided by population size. So 20,000 people in a country where last election I think over 50 crore people actually voted, and we had a sample size of around 20,000 and we did reasonably well. Nationwide, with so much heterogeneity in the country and whatnot, one can still do reasonably well. So it's not the sample fraction, but it is sample size. Of course, with for television channels, this poses a challenge to us with the finance guys. So, we do a nationwide survey and let's say they have paid some amount for a sample of size 20,000. Upcoming election, maybe UP election, they say, oh, UP is about 7% of the total. So now we should get 7% of the budget of what we get. We tell them, well, you will only get 7% accuracy. You want same accuracy as before, I want same amount of money. Very, very difficult to sell. They don't accept, but then they'll say, okay, we'll give you some. So we have to bargain and get something done. But something which is extremely counterintuitive. In fact, what I have found is that even friends who have done MSc statistics ages ago, then it was only a theorem. It was done and forgotten. They have never used it. Now they have become commoners. They also argue with me, how is it possible? So it's counterintuitive, but true. So the other way of putting it is that if you draw a large enough sample size, most samples are representative of the population, and therefore if you pick one at random, you will get the pulse of the population. This statement is true, but the whole crux lies in the word random. What do we mean by random? And colloquially, most people mistake the word random as arbitrary. Instead of saying pick an arbitrary number, they'll say pick a random number, or go and talk to any random person. But that's what exactly is meant as arbitrary. And in fact, to illustrate my point, the RAM, which is there on all our machines, etc., its expansion is random access memory. It itself is actually a misnomer. It is actually an arbitrary access memory as opposed to linear access memory of a tape drive. But whoever coined the word had this confusion in their mind, and so they named it random access memory, and the word RAM has stuck forever. At least as long as computers of this type are there, it will be there. So, it would have been ARM. Sorry? It would have been ARM otherwise. Otherwise it would have been ARM. Yes. So, actually, let's say some people have argued with me. So let's say right now, let's say this is a crowd of 60. And let's assume other than me, people have come from Bombay only. Nobody has come from another city to here. So someone would argue with me that if you wanted a sample of size 60 in the city, just talk to people here. I would say no. They say, why not? This could have been one of the lists. I said, yes, could have been. But if you actually make a list, what are the chances that this list will come up out of so many million? So, this is the other lesson, that you can't draw a sample and say, tell me, is it a random sample or not? No. This random or not is a property of the process by which you have chosen, and not of the ultimate list that has been generated. Okay? And if you do not do a random sample, then all things are possible. So if I want to make a project, if I want to be on air saying that so and so has won, I've pre-decided, then I can doctor my sample, and we know socio-economic profiles, who has what, who is prone to vote what way, etc., etc. You can always tweak a sample to get it to say what you want to say, and then still not be caught, even if somebody audits it. Of course, here in India there is no auditing. Nobody looks at it. I can come and say whatever I want to say. Nobody is there to audit what actually data I got, whether I actually did a survey, what analysis I did. Nothing. Nobody is there to look at it. It's It's something which is grossly potential of misuse, being misused. I'm not saying it is being misused. Probably it is by some, but it should be there. This auditing part should be there, but that's a different story. So coming back, the crux of this whole thing, magic, is in being able to select a random sample, in able to pick one list as if we had made all these lists and pick one list. How do we do that? That is the real challenge. The other aspect is, people, they say, oh, if this is so, then why do you still make mistakes? Why can't you get it accurately? Now, look at it this way. Even for a close-up election, if I want to get it right in the sense of 99%, I need a sample of something like 4,000. Now, for Lok Sabha election, 543 into 4,000 is roughly 21 lakhs. Now, who will give me money to do a sampling for 21 lakhs? At the rates at which we were charging, I was not doing, CSDS was charging CNNIB, that adds to 100 crores. Who is going to give me 100 crores to do sampling across the country just to say who is going to win? Nobody. But the bigger point is, even if somebody is willing to give this 100 crores, where will I get a trained and reliable manpower of that size who will go and do the work? Even if 1% of them goof up and sit at home and fill out forms, my whole exercise has gone for a toss. So it's resources in short supply, not just money, but manpower, trained and reliable manpower. So that is, doing a survey of 21 lakhs is out of question. There are people who do claim surveys of the size 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, and I just look at it and discount it. Because at that size, the reliability of the survey exercise starts becoming question mark. So what this means is that I can't really predict each seat in isolation. And that is where now aspect of mathematics. So now we have to kind of relate what happens in one constituency with other constituencies. Okay. And that is where whatever one may call it, subjectivity, one may call it understanding, domain understanding, one may call it creation of mathematical model of voter behavior based on what we understand the voters to be. Okay. That aspect comes in. If I could do 21 lakhs, then there is no mathematical modeling, nothing. Each seat I predict winner, add up and go on air, then they don't need me, basically. I am needed because that 21 lakh is not possible. So we do a survey, a nationwide survey with 20,000, 25,000. And then we have to translate that into seats. It's not magic. So if you wanted me to go on air predicting each individual seats, that exercise will go for a toss. But when the objective is to only give nationwide seats, like in the last Lok Sabha election, will NDA cross the halfway mark or not? That was the question. And that year we did a sequence of polls, and with every poll we were seeing that the things were increasing, and it was, by the time we went on air that morning, Mr. Ketkar is here to, those who did watch the show also can testify that we were super confident that this is of course the extent of victory we did not expect. I'm not saying that, so therefore this is not the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. But at the same time, a survey and survey-based analysis, provided it is done unbiased. If we are trying to use this as a way of kind of foretelling what we think should happen, then there is no point. If we do an unbiased analysis, then one can get a pulse of the people, and this we have seen several times. So in all we must have, especially I have kept a track of what we did for Rajdeep's CNN-IBN 2005 to 2014, because it was a one stable arrangement. The CSDS doing the survey, CNN-IBN funding it with a print partner each time, different one, but the controlling entity was CNN-IBN and Rajdeep, and I was doing the analysis, and we had a very clear understanding, again Mr. Ketkar can testify to that, that the numbers were entirely mine. Even if Rajdeep didn't believe on them, at best, in fact he has said on air, that He said, I will be like the Congress party. If it is wrong, fault is yours. If it is right, credit is mine. Once he said this on air. So, we had very clear this thing that whatever numbers say, it may be wrong, but it is not motivated. Whatever numbers are saying, we will go on ahead with that. So, in this first part of general remarks, I will just say one additional part. I am asked by people that, oh, so you do this vote to seat conversion? I said, yes. So then they say, but this opinion polls and this predicting parliament thing did not quite start in India, right? It has been done in the West earlier. So why do you have to reinvent the wheel? Why can't you just look at what these other guys do and learn from them? Okay. So, of course, in various contexts, such comments all of us would have heard in different times, different contexts. So in this case, actually, first time I did this in 1998 Lok Sabha election. This was for Doordarshan and India Today. There was some arrangement between them. And there was tons of money to flow. Not to me, but overall to spend. So they had the BBC expert on election and psephology, Professor Clive Payne. He's a statistics PhD who had at that time track record of doing it for BBC for 25 years. So you can't get better than that. So Professor Clive Payne was flown into Delhi to basically guide us in this endeavor and exercise. And Yogen was busy with various other things, so it fell upon me to interact with Clive. And in the Delhi winter in Lodi Gardens, 2 days we were just taking a walk in the nice sunshine, and both of us asking lots of questions to each other. Me asking him questions on methodology and him asking me questions on Indian politics. Though that was my first election, I had been a political animal right from the beginning. So I was deeply into it. I could answer all queries he had. At the end of that 2 days, we concluded that we cannot use the methodology that he has been using for BBC for 25 years. Superficially, our system is same as UK. We have basically borrowed it from there. First past the post in each constituency, and then parties and majority became PM, etc., etc. And yet, his methodology simply will not work. There were many reasons, but two main reasons. First is availability of data. So his methodology used heavily the fact that in UK they have what they call precinct level, which translates here to polling booth level, socio-economic profiles. We don't quite have that. For a polling booth level, all we have is the gender profile and age profile. Because voters list, these are the only things which are entered, nothing else. From names we may conclude a few things, but that's about it. This data is there in census, but census data is organized at a district level. So the socio-economic profiles we don't even have at constituency level. And so this is one big challenge, because this was the main ingredient in Clive's model that he has been using. The second part is also important. The system is the same, but voters' mind works differently. After all, in UK, how many defections from Labour to Con and Con to Labour we can count? Certainly no ex-PM has been ever defected, right? Or the hopping parties. So the political reality is very different. System is the same. Okay? So again, I'll use a favorite line of mine, that electrons spin the same way in UK as they spin here. But the same is not true about human minds. So the one question which differentiates this behavior politically is what percentage of people change their vote from the last election to this election. Assume we are looking at only people who voted the two elections. Okay? And let's say we know that there are people make difference between Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, etc. So Vidhan Sabha to Vidhan Sabha or Lok Sabha to Lok Sabha. What percentage? UK and India. UK, Clive says it is extremely small, which again is an important part of their model that they have for seat predictions. Okay. So to quote Clive, he says, why 5 years? This translates generations. So he is a social science professor in a liberal arts college. So without knowing anything else, we can say he must be voting Labour. Not just he, his entire family votes Labour. Okay. And Clive in fact said that the biggest scandal my extended family we can imagine is to know that my daughter went and voted Con. Nothing can be more scandalous than that. That is the intensity with which they identify. Now, we all can see, none of us, I suppose, identifies with any political entity with that intensity. In fact, the leaders themselves don't identify. So how can we identify? Right? So experts would say that this proportion is rather high in India. Now, depending on whom you talk to, people would come up with numbers anywhere between 10% to 50%, whatnot. 98, we had funding to actually do an experiment where we talked to people before the first phase of poll. That time it was a 3-phase poll. And then everyone in the same group, we went and talked to them the day after they had voted. And we had measured that 30% people had changed their mind. And the gap was 8 days for 1/3 of these people, 16 days for another 1/3, and 24 days for the remaining 1/3. 30% change. Okay. So that is the political reality in India, that there is a tremendous churn as the polling day nears. Okay. There are some other pollsters who say that we do what, in US it is very popular, so they do it here, tracking poll. So every 3 days I do a poll and try to fit a line and assume that now remaining 2 weeks the same line will hold. Now again, that I don't believe works in India. So I've said on air and I'll again say that predictive power of any pre-election opinion poll done with the best of methodology and done by the best pollster is limited in India. It tells you what is the picture as of today. Many things can happen between this poll and now the next coming up is Delhi on 7th February. We still have quite a bit of days left and a lot of drama to be enacted on streets and on TV studios and so on and so forth. So a lot of people who would be fence sitters, so they themselves don't know they are fence sitters. Today they are saying they may be voting up. Then somebody says something, they get upset that no, I will not vote up. They will vote somebody else and vice versa.
Or not vote at all.
Or not vote at all. That's the other part. That opinion, pre-election opinion poll, we can only get a profile of the entire population, but the entire population doesn't vote. And again, various studies which we know that there is a certain bias in voting. So again, anecdotal, 2004, the election which BJP and Vajpayee lost, Delhi was I used to live in Delhi, that was the last day of poll. And after spending whole day in Aaj Tak and so on, I wanted to go home and they were taking time to arrange taxis. I said, forget it, it's my city, I can just go home. So I walked to the street and took an auto. So auto fellow didn't know where I was coming from. That is the important part. He was in a chatting mood. He asked me, he tells me, sir, I have not said anything to him. He says, sir, आपकी बीजेपी हार गई आज दिल्ली, 7 सीट हार गई. So I said, अच्छा आपको कैसे मालूम? सुबह से मैं रिक्शा चला रहा हूँ एंड आप जैसे लोग जो बीजेपी को वोट देते हैं वो सब घर में एसी में बैठे हुए हैं. मेरे जैसे लोग सब लाइन लगा के खड़े हैं वोटिंग बूथ पे. ओके, 7 सीट हार गई. He very emphatically said, and of course that's what happened in Delhi in 2004. So, I mean, this is something which we know that there is a differential voting propensity amongst potential voters of different parties. So, opinion poll to an actual poll, there are these differences. Now, to address this, all channels do, or many channels do what is called an exit poll. So that is when people are interviewed as they are exiting the booth. So now you have, at one stroke, you are only picking people who have voted and you have asked them a question just as they have voted. So the two problems I have outlined go away. But now a new problem comes up. How do I do a sampling? So at best I can do polling booths, that I can choose polling booths by my methodology and send my enumerator there. But if I send him with a list of 50 people in a booth and he is asking as people are coming out, sir, madam, is your name here, please stop, nobody will wait for it. So essentially we have to leave it to this enumerator to pick people. We can tell him, do thumb rule every 7th person, but people are going in and coming out in crowds, in hordes. It is impossible. And what we have seen, early part, I think 1999, we did a exit poll, and see, apart from voting intentions, we asked various other questions, socio-economic profile, etc. And that's kind of a test for us whether the sampling has gone on okay or not. Even before I look at which party is getting what percent of vote in my poll, we look at socio-economic profile, how much it is matching or not. CSDS data work has been impeccable. They have done very good work, and whatever success or correct prediction that I have had, that plays a very, very important role. That poll also done by CSDS was off on various socio-economic parameters, and the one parameter where it was most off was male-female, gender. And once you start thinking about it, you know, we can easily build a theory to explain why it happened. Most enumerators are men. In India, people have a reluctance to talk to a woman whom you don't know, just like that, stop and ask. So that would translate into this. Add that the effect that husband and wife have gone to vote together, they are walking out together. This fellow says, okay, 7th or 8th, I don't know who they are 7th or 8th. Okay? So generally it stops both of them and asks a question, and guess who is going to answer? Now this we try to correct in the next poll. Okay? So an effect that we can identify, we can try to correct, but there could be so many such underlying effects that exit poll based thing, we stop doing that essentially. Given our silly and almost silly system of month-long poll with 5 phases and gaps and so on and so forth, what we do is, this is not what we have dictated, this is what it is. So all the 4 phases except the last phase we do day after poll. Proper methodological poll. People will go to their home and ask them questions. We do that poll. Last day, because the channel wants to go on air, we'll do something, and sometimes we say we cannot do it, sometimes we do something and go on air. So that has been more or less what we have been doing. So exit poll, I have a grave question mark about the quality of data that gets generated. And then it is, you see, how much of weight you give to data and how much of weight you give to, oh, I know what is going to happen. I don't give them any weight, but maybe people do. I don't know. What is surprising to me is that so many polls all come to very similar numbers. Right or wrong, they come to a similar number. Now that raises a question mark as a statistician. I think I have tried to cover the broad points which I wanted to cover, and we can now move to question answers or discussion mode.